2024 season is kicking off this Thursday. Hi everyone, this is Spectator Sports. I'm your host Sebastian Fonseca, back at it again with episode number 108. Before we get into previewing the NFL season, please do us a massive favor to help this platform grow, reach a broader audience. We need your help. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you want to get clips from Spectator Sports from this episode or episodes past, we have playlists from various topics all across YouTube. And if you want other clips, we have it on TikTok as well. And if you want to enjoy it on Spotify as an audio experience, we got that too. All links are in the description. The Kansas City Chiefs have done something we haven't seen in over 20 years. They went back to back. And now this season in 2024, they are trying to hit the unprecedented three-peat in the NFL. This hasn't been done before, and now every team is going to be hunting for you because they have the biggest target on their back. Well, Patrick Mahomes is back. He's healthy yet again. He had a good training camp. And in this offseason, despite last year when they got somehow to another Super Bowl, they didn't look like it. After Christmas, they lost some games. They were backpedaling into the Super Bowl, but yet they won a couple road playoff games, and now they are looking to do the unprecedented three-peat. With that, I think they have some really good weapons on the outside and inside, but looking at their offseason moves, their GM made some notable moves because they knew last year they just got away thanks to the expertise, the superstardom of Patrick Mahomes and that defense. They leaned on that defense. Well, they got some new recruits. They brought in Xavier Worthy, the combine record setter for the 40-yard dash. He's going to be the take your top off the defense, have another set of eyes, because we know when Xavier Worthy's on the field, yes, he may struggle to get out of jams, but he's going to be a very, very big concern for any opposing defenses because he can burn you over the top, can chase down any deep ball that Patrick Mahomes lays out for him. And that's going to open things up for Travis Kelce, and then their new addition in Hollywood Brown. Now, Hollywood Brown is going to be missing a couple games due to injury, but he's still a very good weapon. He's had a good career so far with the Baltimore Ravens and then had a couple solid years in Arizona, and now we're gonna see how he does with this Patrick Mahomes-led offense. I think once he gets into the fold, once he gets healthy, he'll be good because they're gonna need some other people to step up. They let Kadarius Toney go, and we do know that Rashee Rice, due to the off-the-field issues this offseason, he's probably gonna face some type of suspension, and they're definitely going to lean on Hollywood Brown to start off, and that just bolsters their wide receiver depth. Going to the defensive end, they definitely have some holes to start the offseason, but I think they did a good job with anointing Trent McDuffie as the quarterback one to take away any opposing team's number one wide receiver, because L'Jarius Sneed used to be that guy. They traded him to Tennessee. They got some good draft capital back. And I think the other notable move is that they were able to bring back Chris Jones. They brought him to a massive extension, well-deserved. He's probably the best defensive tackle in this league. I think he's a game wrecker. He has saved the Chiefs so many times. He is probably the kryptonite of the Cincinnati Bengals, for example. And then in the Super Bowl, I think in that goal-to-go situation, he just wrecked that play. Brock Purdy had no time to unload a pass that could have been the game-winning pass in that Super Bowl. And I think with him anchoring that defense, they will be very, very poised under defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. As their division as a whole, you see teams that are either having a new coach or an inexperienced quarterback. And I think this is a very good path for the Kansas City Chiefs to go at a minimum 5-1, if not sweep the entire division. The Chargers, I think, are a team that always have a lot of talent with Justin Herbert, but I don't think that when it comes to the nitty-gritty that they have what it takes to beat a team like the Kansas City Chiefs even once. And if you're thinking about that in the grand scheme of things, that helps out with their conference record. And they have an interesting test opening night against the Baltimore Ravens. And we'll get into seeding a little bit later. But if they are to win that, they already have the inside pole position to winning the AFC, as they would claim a vital tiebreaker over the Baltimore Ravens for home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. I know it's hard to say that you're picking some team against the field, but in this case, I think there is certainly goes to say that this could be an exception where you pick the one team against the entire field to make unprecedented history and win an NFL three-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs. The AFC North is, I think, the league's toughest division. Last year, we saw 4 teams vie for what probably could be 2, if not 3 wild card spots. And in this year, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who are the defending AFC North champions. And I think with Lamar back at the helm, he's already won his 2nd MVP. Bringing in Derrick Henry is a great addition to the back. It kind of takes some pressure off of Lamar, but also brings some physicality. Their defense, we know, is very, very physical, and they bring the boom, they lay the lumber, and I think that's the side that they don't have to worry about physicality. Offensively, it's a little bit finesse. Lamar is a slippery, fast quarterback, and then they've had some speedsters on the outside, but bringing Derrick Henry, giving it extra oomph to the offensive line, and just running the rock brings an extra dimension to this Baltimore offense. I think it makes it very, very lethal. Mark Andrews will be healthy this season, and that will be a viable go-to option, and I expect that Zay Flowers will be a breakout candidate this year. He had some really good looks, especially late on. He kind of caught fire, and I think with this season, within a full off season of reps, he will get a lot of looks as the first wide receiver, and he can line up pretty much anywhere on the field, so that's going to get him a lot of touches, and that's going to be another dimension that we haven't seen from Baltimore. And looking at what they could do, are they a team that can challenge the Kansas City Chiefs? Absolutely. I think they're probably the top threat out of this whole talented conference to do so. It's just that they're going to take a lot of body blows just to claim the division, because this division is very, very tricky from top to bottom. Cincinnati is going to get back Joe Burrow after suffering a season-ending wrist injury last year. He's talked about having that extra time to recover. He gets a head start on that offseason, get the mental reps once the injury was ready to go. He was basically looking for the 2024 season to start. Training camp went well, and we do have the Jamar Chase contract negotiations up in the air. I think that may get resolved before they start their first game, but remains to be seen. Regardless, the Cincinnati Bengals did make some notable move. I thought bringing in Geno Stone, stealing him from the Baltimore Ravens, was a very, very nice move. Gets them some secondary help, which we've seen some lackluster secondary play since Jesse Bates left in the 2023 offseason. So that's a good move for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's going to be probably their last stand as presently constructed. They already lost Joe Mixon in the offseason, and I'm not really sure who's going to really get a lot of carries for the Cincinnati Bengals, but it's going to be interesting to see. Joe Burrow is poised. He's motivated. I think the defense, at least the defensive line, is very, very good. Trey Hendrickson should be up there getting 12 to 14 sacks this year, I think. But it definitely makes it a little bit muddled because they have had some issues on the line. We don't know exactly what the contract situation was with Jamar Chase. So it's a lot of things up in the air, but I do think the Cincinnati Bengals will be just another very good team in this very talented AFC North division. So the Cleveland Browns face a ton of urgency this season. They face something where their quarterback returns from injury, but we need to see him put together a quality season in terms of long-term play. He's been in and out of the lineup last year. He played like 6 games, ended up missing the rest of the season due to a fracture in his shoulder. But he's going to have to put up or shut up. During his days in Houston, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we haven't seen that type of quality play ever since joining the Cleveland Browns. He restructured his deal, but that means that the Browns are are going to be taking a huge dead cap load next year if he was not on the roster. So it helps him on the front end, but kills him on the back end. So now it's time to see that investment was worth it, because if you look at the trade now, it's probably one of the most one-sided trades. They paid a lot of money to this guy, and they basically kickstarted the Texans' rebuild opportunity. The defense obviously is one of the best in the league. I mean, secondary to defensive line led by Myles Garrett is going to be very, very tenacious. That is going to be the part that they hang their hat on. And I mean, their skills positions are also pretty good. We're going to see Nick Chubb return at some point, but we know Jerome Ford is going to handle the bulk of the carries to start and ease Nick Chubb back into the mix of things. I think with him getting back into it, they have some experience at running back and have some good wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy is going to be competing for a number 2 position behind Amari Cooper. I think that's going to be a nice mix of speed but also great route running between the two. It's going to come down to whether or not their quarterback can stay healthy, and if so, then this is a pretty dangerous team, but it's hanging on a big what if. We talked about Pittsburgh quite a bit, so I don't think I need to get into too much with that, but since our last recording, Russell Wilson's been named the starter. Made sense just given Mike Tomlin's culture, but it's going to be a short leash for Russell Wilson, that's for sure. I think he's going to start at least a couple of games, and then they'll see how the offense looks. And if it looks good, he's going to get a little bit of a leash extended. But if it doesn't go well, I'm going to put in Justin Fields. And yet again, I think this is a team that is good on defense, but it doesn't have a lot of interesting pieces on the offensive end. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year. They were admirable at times, but I still don't think they have what it takes in a very, very competitive AFC, let alone this division. But we'll see what happens. I think once we make the rankings, I'll show you what I think, how they stack up amongst the rest. But it's a very interesting division. This AFC North as a whole, I think, is going to be, from top to bottom, the toughest division. And I think whoever wins it is going to have certainly a prize, but it's going to be hard to get the 1 seed just due to taking so many body blows. It wouldn't be surprising if you win the division, but your record sucks or isn't as good as the other AFC rivals because some people have taken bites out of you along the way to that division title. So taking a look at the entire AFC prediction, I think in terms of seeding, this is how it's going to go. I have Kansas City as the 1 seed. It makes a lot of sense. They're going to get that due to a tiebreaker, which they will pick up on opening night against the Baltimore Ravens. I believe that tiebreaker is going to pay big dividends to them going forward. That means that they basically have a game in hand, and that is going to be big favors for them going forward. And Baltimore, while they may win the division, they're still going to be a very good threat. They were going to finish number 2 ahead of Miami, who I think this year is when they break through, they win the division. And I'm going to get into other stuff going forward, but I think they are just a little bit better than Buffalo. And not just Buffalo, but I think just the entire division. Miami has what it takes. They are looking good. Tua should be healthy yet again for 16-17 games. Mike McDaniels has added some complexities with the offense. And I think defensively they will get a full year of Jalen Ramsey too, which will be a big-time addition to this team. Now, at the 4 seed, makes sense to put in CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. I think they're a team that is looking to build off of last year. Jacksonville could be good, that don't get me wrong, but I think Houston just has a little bit more compared to them, and I think they can handle Jacksonville in 2 matchups and getting, if not a split or a sweep between the Jaguars would be great, and then they can probably have that tiebreaker in their back pocket if they win the AFC South. For the wild cards, I think Cincinnati's the best of the bunch. They have Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and they just may not have enough to win the division, but they certainly do have enough. They finished last in the division last year, and that's going to help their scheduling out a little bit. They're going to play some lesser competition, boost up their record, and Joe Burrow, as long as he's healthy, they should be definitely a dark horse in this AFC playoff race. My bold prediction is that the Bills actually don't make the playoffs and the Chargers take their place. Jim Harbaugh, in year 1, they hit an acceleration on their rebuild efforts, and they actually get into the playoffs thanks to stability at the offensive line. This time, Herbert has some time to look around in the pocket, helps him out, and they don't have any studs at receiver, but I think it's going to be a collective effort to help this team move forward in the playoffs. And in terms of the Buffalo Bills, I think with them, they could take a step back. They might be a team that is a 9-8 type of team. They have a very hard schedule, and also the injuries. They lost Matt Milano already. He may be coming back in December, but might be too late. I think with the receivers, I mean, Keon Coleman is a great on the microphone. He's really interesting. I think his play is going to be some growing pains, and it's going to take some time for him to get acclimated to the NFL. You're going to see probably a lot of Dalton Kincaid reps that are going to get him in the passing game. And Josh Allen, I think with him, you're always going to be in a game with a quarterback like Josh Allen, don't get me wrong, but it again comes down to decision making. He always goes for the home run ball instead of taking what is there, and that uber aggressive leads to turnovers. And I think with him, we're going to see something where he might face some injury as well, because this, due to his play being all over the place, there's not really a lot of reining in his play since they lost their coordinator a couple of years ago, and since then they've been trying to figure out who's going to be the guy that keeps Josh Allen in check, and we just haven't seen that. It's going to be they step back, and I think my other bold prediction is that McDermott is the guy to take the fall for it. I think he's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but in the years we've seen him, and since the Josh Allen era has really begun, where they're not doing the little things, and that's really the difference. Those are games where they've lost to competition that they definitely could be there just based off of talent, but it again comes down to the little things that they just don't do, and maybe teams like the Chiefs or Cincinnati Bengals do. My other surprise pick is that the New York Jets are actually going to sneak into the playoffs. I think with competent quarterback play, a healthy Aaron Rodgers is what we were aiming to see last year, and that just did not happen due to the Achilles injury. This year, he's back. We may not see him at peak Rodgers rate. He is going to be 40. He's going to be turning 41 in December. But Rodgers is a guy that doesn't make mistakes. They don't need to be Superman, but their offense, as long as they make the changes and the offensive line holds up, offensively, they look really good. Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to take a major step forward in his development, and Breece Hall is set to go off at any given point. Plus, I think with Mike Williams, he's looking for a rebound season. It's going to take a big effort from him to stay healthy, but I think he's capable of doing that. And defensively, they're going to be up there, top 5 defense. They can win them some ball games in case the offense isn't going that well. I think that's the reason why they're going to take a piece out of Buffalo, and that's going to hurt their chances for getting into the playoffs. And that's my AFC playoff race. Is going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but that's my prediction. The NFC North is another interesting division. I'm going to talk about the Packers and Lions, two teams that are vying for division supremacy. Last year, the Lions won their first division in almost 30 years, and the Packers, despite having a rough start, were able to sneak into the playoffs and become the first ever 7 seed to win a playoff game, and very nearly beat the 1-seeded 49ers in the divisional round. Now, Jordan Love is back, and they made some additions on the offensive side. They brought in Josh Jacobs and brought in Xavier McKinney in free agency, some big moves to bolster the defense and also replace Aaron Jones at running back. Offensively, I think they're going to be up there with one of the best in the league. I want to see how their defense really pans out. But despite Detroit being probably favorites to not only win this division, but also represent the NFC in the playoffs, I do think that Detroit is vulnerable at times just because they are a team that now has some experiences to get to the NFC Championship game, but they also can be vulnerable just being a young team. This is a very young team, and they're finding their way. And last year, we saw on Thanksgiving that these Packers were able to beat the Lions on Thanksgiving. And that was a sign that the Lions, they're good, but they're maybe not an elite team just yet. I do think they're an elite team, and that gap is probably going to be pretty close yet again. But the Lions, I think, just have a little bit more. They made some moves in this offseason to put them into not just Super Bowl dark horses, but Super Bowl contenders this year. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to probably get a bevy of the carries, and you're going to see David Montgomery be the change of pace back. Maybe you're going to see Jared Goff take another step forward. I think he is a guy severely underrated for the Detroit Lions. He gets a lot of jokes, but I think he's a very good quarterback. And this offense is going to be fun to watch. Jameson Williams, we're waiting to see if he breaks out this year. And the defense, I think, in the secondary has made some really good moves. Carlton Davis from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be a nice move for them on their secondary. They brought in Terrion Arnold from Alabama in the draft, their first-round draft pick. They traded up to get him. I think that was an excellent selection. I think Sam Laporta is going to be the best tight end in this conference. George Kittle has been there for years, and credit to him. He's probably he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But Sam Laporta has already bursted onto the scene. I think he's going to be a very popular fantasy pick for many people. Not only that, but I think he's just going to be one of the best tight ends in this league. Maybe not to Kelsey's level, but close. And that's why I'm going to say that looking at how Detroit finishes is going to be close. Maybe they split, but I think Detroit just has a little bit more, and they win this NFC North division. Now, looking at the NFC predictions, it's going to be interesting how this shakes up. This is maybe not as talented as the AFC, but I think the competition is very close. For number 1 seed, I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to finish 13-4 and have the top record in the NFC, mainly due to the offense carrying the load. I think it's very high powered. I think with them looking for not only just a hot start, but to close out something that they didn't do in 2023. The defense will come a little bit slower than the offense, but it will be very effective due to their very deep depth at the cornerback position in particular. And I think we're going to see a breakout season from Jalen Carter. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Pro Bowl kind of guy just due to his pass rushing ability and also being able to stop the run. I have Detroit being the number 2 seed. I think just them having a tough division is what prevents them from being the number 1 seed in this situation. They're not only facing the Packers, but I think the Chicago Bears are also going to be a team that takes a bite out of the conference record. These could come down to conference record tiebreakers because this year in particular, Detroit isn't playing Philly head-to-head, so it's going to come down to probably conference record as a tiebreaker. And I think with that, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, but I think that's the difference there. I've been high on Atlanta to start off some of these videos heading into this season, and I'm going to continue that trend because Atlanta, I think, is going to ride the softer schedule and be a team that finishes 12-5, maybe lose out on a tiebreaker. And I think with that, they might even be a 2 seed, but I think that I couldn't make that bold prediction. I think they're a 3 seed due to their very soft schedule, and with Kirk Cousins leading the way and their very high prolific offense, some modifications to the defense, mixing some veteran leadership, I think they're going to be a sneaky good team in the NFC playoff race. You're going to see that now, and you notice now in my standings that San Francisco takes a step back. I think there's going to be some very real Super Bowl hangover. A lot of people are picking the Rams to not only usurp the 49ers in this division, but it could be a dark horse contender for the 1 seed. Now, I can't really make that broad a jump because I like what San Francisco has done. I think they've kept their good pieces. Trent Williams will be back. Brandon Ayuk got extended. The offense the offense is going to be virtually the same, and continuity is really important in the NFL. But in terms of the talent perspective, I think they just have a little bit more compared to LA. LA is hinging their entire season on an older Matthew Stafford, and I think he's going to be good. But if he gets injured and it's the back, I think that's going to be a big loss for them, and they may not be able to recover from that. The loss of Aaron Donald also is going to be another blow to this season, and I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but I just don't think they're good enough to win this division. Green Bay will be there absolutely in the playoffs. I think they're the best wild card team. They're just going to miss out on the NFC North title. They're going to be the best of the wild card teams, and then going back to LA, I'll pick them as the 6th seed. And then my bold prediction is that Chicago wins the last wildcard spot as the 7th seed. Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears are a very high potent offense. They have so many weapons. I think the O-line is a work in progress, don't get me wrong, but I think they'll be able to get the job done. Defensively, they're looking pretty decent. And I think with all these moves this offseason, this is when they finally see the Bears break through, and put themselves on the map as a future NFC contender. They would win the final spot, and then you'll see that the Cowboys aren't in here. And I think with that, it's just due to their lack of moves this offseason. I think the Cowboys are a team that are hanging on by threads. And I don't understand the moves or the people selecting them to be an NFC East favorite. I just don't think they have the roster. I don't think they have the chemistry. The defense, too. I mean, yes, they have Micah Parsons, but Trayvon Diggs is coming off the ACL injury. Deron Bland is going to be missing a good chunk of the season. Somebody's going to have to step up in that cornerback 2 spot, and I think their secondary could be very vulnerable to start off the year. They don't have an easy schedule. And I think with that, that's their doom. I can't put the Commanders in ahead of them. I think the Commanders are a solid team. They'll take a step forward, but they definitely won't be a playoff team nonetheless. We'll see how the season shakes out. I mean, I'm really excited for football this year. It's been too long, but football will be back this Thursday. So that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, to help this channel grow, we need your help. Drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.